Buffalo Bills team grades, episode 2 of Disguised Coverage. I am Anthony. I'm the host of Disguised Coverage. Follow me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro, 2 underscores, ANT. Follow me on the Twitter, like and subscribe to the podcast. While you're there, like and subscribe and follow Cover One, the network that this podcast broadcasts under. Find Cover One and Disguised Coverage on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, pretty much anywhere and everywhere that there is content creation happening. We are the best Buffalo Bills coverage content creators in the game, and you're going to want to follow us. For last week's viewers who are riding with me again on this episode, thank you for tuning in again. Listeners as well, listeners as viewers, welcome back for episode 2. For first-time listeners and or viewers, welcome. I'm excited to have you here. Better late than never. In this episode, we are going to discuss some Buffalo Bills team grades. Shocking. It's in the title. On both the offensive and defensive sides of the ball. We're going to go over some overachievers, some underachievers, all within the scope of the first quarter of the season. The Buffalo Bills, 4-0. Fantastic. Awesome. But that first quarter of the season is done. And with that, obviously, we've had performances that we've expected, performances that we haven't, and a lot of content to kind of sift through, go through, analyze, and break down. And let's jump right into it. We're going to start with the offense. And before I go into the grades, grading, just like school, A+ to an F scale. A+ for me, as it was in school, is 100. So it's tough for me to give someone an A+. I just want to put it out there just in case someone thinks like, oh, this should have been an A+ or so-and-so should have been an A+. It's hard for me to give an A+ because in theory to me, an A+ is 100. It's perfect. And it's really hard for someone to be perfect or close to it and be able to be in that realm. I'm going to break down certain players, again, on both sides of the ball in terms of grades, overachievers, underachievers, all within the scope of the offense in the first quarter of the season. Part of the reason I love the live stream is the content and the engagement and interaction that I get from the comments. So if you've got a question, thought, comment, concern, philosophy, ideology, maxim, theorem, anything like that, a person that you want a quick take on or a quick thought on or something you want to throw out there, throw it into the comments. I try to pull up as many things as I can, anything and everything. And I love interacting with everybody and being here on Disguised Coverage. And we're going to jump right into it. We're going to start with the Buffalo Bills offense. The reason we're starting with the offense is, surprisingly, the Buffalo Bills this year are now an offensive football team. Their identity is an offensive football team. I think we came into this year thinking that the Bills were going to be not close to what they were last year, but that their main identity would be defense. They would be a defensive football team, and if the offense could come up and match that level of quality that the Bills had on the defensive side of the ball, then we'd be sitting there in great shape, great position, having an offense match the defensive quality that the Bills had last year. What we've seen in the first quarter of the season is a pretty significant shift to the point that the offense is the driver of this team. The offense is really what has gotten this team to the 4-0 record. And not only is that offense the driver and the identity of this Bills football team, but the identity of the offense is a passing offense. So the passing game and everything that encompasses it has really been the story of this first quarter of the season. And that's where we're going to start. We're going to start with Josh Allen, much like we did last week. And the reason is because the Bills offense currently sitting in 4th in yards per game at 409.5 yards per game. 2nd in passing yards per game at 316.3 yards per game. 28th in rushing yards per game, 93.3. They are tied for 5th in points per game at 30.8. Dallas is in 3rd in terms of points per game with 31.5. So there is less than a point difference between the Bills at 5th and the Cowboys in 3rd. So the Bills have a very good offense. And Josh Allen, the orchestrator of that offense, the talisman of that offense, the quarterback of that offense, literally and figuratively, he has been the driver of that Bills engine on offense. And that Bills offense has been the driver of this hot Buffalo Bills start. Josh Allen sits currently second in passing yards in the NFL at 1,326. And the only reason he's not number one is because Dak Prescott and the Cowboys find ways to just accumulate garbage time stats week after week. He is third in the NFL in passing touchdowns with 12. He is third in the NFL in both QBR and rating. He has a 70.9 completion percentage, something that I don't think anybody thought he was going to chart. The hope was he could hit 65 and hover around there. He's basically at 71. Fantastic. He's second in yards gained per pass attempt with 9.0. And he's third in yards gained per completion with 12.6. The biggest thing, the stats speak for themselves. The metrics speak for themselves. But when you watch Josh Allen on the field, the things that he's doing this year, and the reason he has received an A grade for me, is everything that he's done to tie the mechanical to the on-field production and efficiency aspect. We are seeing Josh Allen now do things that all-pro quarterbacks do. He's making his proper reads. He's going through his progression. He's not locking in on one target. He's sometimes going from first to second to third. He's dumping it out to the running backs and tight ends. He's hitting his outlets. He's hitting his checkdowns. He is manipulating defenders with his eyes and shifting and playing quarterback at a high level. And because he's played at that high level, he's earned this A. He's really close to an A+ for me. I kind of wanted to, but he's had some botches. He's had some mistakes. He's had some misreads and some missed throws, which is the only reason he doesn't get 100. He doesn't get a perfect, but he's very close, and he's had a phenomenal year so far. He's in the MVP conversation. I'm pretty sure every single Bills fan in the world breathed a massive sigh of relief when he wasn't seriously hurt against Oakland last week with his shoulder. That was scary. That was nerve-wracking. That was worrisome. Josh Allen gets an A. He's fantastic. His running mate, Stefon Diggs, Allen Diggs, 2020. That's who I'm voting for in this upcoming election. Stefon Diggs also receives an A, but it's not just for his stats, which we're going to break down a little bit right now. Stefon Diggs is tied for first in receiving yards in the NFL with 403. He has 26 receptions on 35 targets, 2 touchdowns, a 74.3 catch percentage. But as I alluded to, what Stefon Diggs has done is much more than just the numbers. He has provided so much for the offense, being a true number one wide receiver. And to tie it in with Josh Allen, as we continue to talk about Stefon Diggs, I think a really fun topic and something that we're going to get into on this show, not in this episode, but somewhere down the road. Josh Allen is obviously having a phenomenal year. But a fun debate and a fun thought to have really is, what would Josh Allen look like in this year without Stefon Diggs? Because the impact that Stefon Diggs has had on this offense and on Josh Allen is quantifiable in terms of his stats, but it's also not quantifiable. The energy that he brings, the attitude that he brings, the confidence that he brings, the swagger, the dog mentality that he brings is very impactful. It changes a lot in terms of the culture in a positive way. And then when you talk about the on-field things, again, there's the stats, but having a true number one wide receiver like Stefon Diggs, someone who can win against multiple coverages, someone who can moss defenders like we saw against the Oakland Raiders. That moss catch, right, by Stefon Diggs, awesome catch. Allen put it in a spot where Diggs could make a play, and Diggs made a play. But to nitpick a little, if Allen would have led that ball more towards the middle of the field, more towards the opposite corner, towards the pylon, Diggs catches that and walks in scot-free. His route was beautiful. The timing was beautiful. Josh Allen slightly underthrew that ball and put it more in the middle of the field to the point that he allowed the defender to have a chance to make a play on the ball. And the defender, bless his heart, tried to make a play on the ball. And the only reason he didn't was because he got mossed hard by Stefon Diggs. And that play is an example of Stefon Diggs just being better than the defender, being what he is, which is a top 8 to 12 wide receiver in the NFL, being one of the best route runners in the entire NFL, and being someone that makes big catches on third down, makes technically sound catches, makes athletic catches, can catch the ball anywhere and everywhere on the field, deep, intermediate, short, crossers, outs, hooks, flats, mesh point routes. He's the security blanket for Josh Allen, someone that when push comes to shove, Allen can say, you know what? Let me get that guy the ball. I have confidence in that guy. He's the guy you can go to almost no matter what. And then when you also draw it up with the X's and O's, having someone like that on the offense opens up things for John Brown and Cole Beasley and Gabriel Davis. I was almost going to call him Gabe, but I know he prefers Gabriel, so Gabriel Davis. The tight ends, which we've seen solid production from Tyler Kroft. We've seen the underneath open up for dump-offs to Singletary and screens and things like that. He opens up so much from a scheme ability and strategery standpoint, in addition to the numbers that he's put up. Stephon Diggs allows this Bills offense to win with scheme, but also to win with talent because he's very good. And he 1,000% gets an A for me in what he's done. And it's really going to be something to dive into the thought, and I guess a little bit of a debate in terms of what would Allen look like if he didn't have Stephon Diggs. I think Stephon Diggs has made a tremendous impact. Having a true number one wide receiver and adding to the weaponry that the Bills have has been tremendous. And I want to pull up some comments now because these are good. Josh Allen's success from Young King. Josh Allen's success starts with his mechanic tweak and spreads from Diggs to Cole Beasley, Brown, Davis, O-line, etc. That is 100% correct. His mechanical tweaks and fixes and troubleshooting that he did in the offseason have been really solid. He improved on almost everything that we hoped and wanted him to improve on. But his ability to tie it all in with the on-field aspect is awesome. We've seen so many guys have great mechanics and great form and great release points and release time and so on and so forth. But Allen being able to tie it in to what's going on the field has been just something really tremendous. Another good comment here from Nicholas Lowe. In my opinion, he's been distributing to so many different people that he would still be doing well, but Diggs really has brought the offense to a different level. And that's the thought right there. He's been distributing the ball because he's made solid improvements in his mechanics and tied it in with on-field ability, progression reading, understanding of the playbook and NFL defenses. It's a wonder, would he still be doing these things without Stephon Diggs? And that might be like the coolest thing of everything. The fact that we could have a conversation and potentially remove Stephon Diggs and think or wonder or debate, whatever verbiage you want to use, as to whether or not Josh Allen would still be as successful means Allen is doing some really good things and some really fun things. And he's been on point. They both get A's. They are the drivers of the offense, thus the drivers of this team, since the identity of this football team is now an offensive football team and a passing offense at that. And they both get A's, which is awesome. Corrected as facts. I like that. I like how you spelled it with a Z. It adds a little bit of flavor to it. I like that. I like it a lot. Next up, we're going to stick with the offense, you guys. I like adding you guys to things. I'm going to keep doing it. I think it's funny and whimsical. I like that. I want to talk about an overachiever. And when I say overachiever, again, we're sticking on the offensive side of the ball. An overachiever is someone who has overachieved in terms of their expectations. So it's almost somewhat of a return on investment type thing. And I've got two. Again, there's a lot to break down in content with this team. But if we went player by player on offense and defense, we'd be here for a very, very long time, which actually could work out because the Bills' next game might be postponed to God knows when because the Tennessee Titans don't know how to follow protocol or wear masks or do things. But, that's an argument for another time. First overachiever, wide receiver, rookie wide receiver, Gabriel Davis. He's averaging 16.1 yards per catch, which leads the Buffalo Bills. His catch percentage is 100%, which is fantastic. He is tied with Stephon Diggs and John Brown with 2 receiving touchdowns, which is a co-leader for the Buffalo Bills. But more than just the stats, it's been the quality of play and the quality of catches that he's made. The diving catch against Miami was phenomenal. Him to dive, catch that ball, and then bring it in and secure it. I said it on Twitter at the time. I thought it hit the ground. I didn't think he caught that. I thought they were going to review it, and I was like, oh, that's not going to count. We're going to have to kick a field goal. We need the defense to make a stop. But no, he laid out full, hardcore for that ball and still managed to bring it in and grasp it to the point that he maintained control and that ball did not hit the ground. It did not move. That was a phenomenal catch by Gabriel Davis. And that's a rookie 4th-round pick making a play like that. They catch against the Rams up the sideline where he caught it, brought it in, did the little sideline toe tap. Again, that's a 4th-round rookie wide receiver making that play. Even the wide open touchdown against the Raiders to put the Bills up 7-0. It may be small and maybe I'm just blowing it up too much in a positive way, but Allen floats that ball in perfectly and Gabriel Davis doesn't catch it in. He puts his hands out and he effortlessly catches it and just brings it in. He has shown poise. He has shown versatility. He's run a variety of routes. He has 147 snaps on the offense, which is only 5 behind Cole Beasley. I know Cole had some injury concerns, and I know John Brown has had some injury concerns, which has thrust Gabriel Davis more into reps and starting potential and starting ability. But the return on investment for a rookie 4th-round wide receiver has been stellar. When he's been called upon, he's delivered. And it was a deep wide receiver class. And when you can add value at any point in the league, at any point, especially in the draft, adding value is tremendous. And Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott have been tremendous at adding value. Gabriel Davis is 1,000% tremendous added value. We've got a 4th-round rookie wide receiver who is the number 4 wide receiver, which is awesome because the Bills have been running a lot of 4 wide receiver sets. He's funneled as the number 3 and even the number 2 at times, depending on the offensive formation. He's getting reps, he's getting looks, and again, he's delivering when called upon, which is something that could be easy to not do as a rookie wide receiver, especially in a COVID offseason with less time to get into the rhythm of the NFL, with less time to find your way in terms of being a professional, in terms of being not only a player in the NFL, but a person in the NFL, both on and off the field. He's overachieved a lot in my book, and I love what he's done, and he's a massive overachiever for me on this offense. Another overachiever, offensive line, a position that gets overlooked from time to time. It's not sexy. It's not super fun. You don't really get excited when your team makes offensive line signings or offensive line draft picks, but it's an extremely important position. The trenches are where games are won and lost. It's so cliche and it's so proverbial, but it's really true. Daryl Williams, right tackle for the Buffalo Bills. He is the highest graded Buffalo Bills offensive lineman. He's been stellar in the run game. He's allowed no sacks. He's allowed only 1 quarterback hit. He's allowed only 5 hurries. He's allowed, let me make sure that number is correct. Yeah, that is correct. Only 6 pressures. He is currently on a 1-year, $2.25 million contract. That is value. Bringing in a free agent offensive lineman on a 1-year, under $3 million deal and just plugging him in and having him be a very solid starter and contributor week after week has been awesome. Daryl Williams has been someone, I think the offensive line as a whole, but especially Daryl Williams, has really gone under the radar. Because when you're talking about the offense, it's been Allen and Diggs and Davis and the points and Singletary making jukes and moves and talk about Cody Ford and where he belongs, where he doesn't belong, how he's played. Even Mitch Morse gets more credit. Deion Dawkins, his personality is so large and Bills Mafia loves him. Daryl Williams has largely been not forgotten, but largely unnoticed on the offensive line this year for the Buffalo Bills. And that's fine. It's understandable, but he's played really well. He's anchored the right side of that offensive line. And part of the reason that Josh Allen has been so successful this year is he has had the time to throw. And when he hasn't, he's got that escapability and he makes plays with his legs. But Daryl Williams has been a really solid addition. And I think what makes him even more of an overachiever for me is he's playing well. He's playing solid. But the fact that he's just on a 1-year, $2.25 million deal, that's peanuts. There are so many teams that have oodles and oodles of money invested in their offensive line, especially at the tackle position. The tackle position is tough, both the right tackle and the left tackle. And we've got a guy making $2.25 million, under $3 million, almost $2 million. Granted, he came from Carolina, so Beane and McDermott are familiar with him. Granted, he's a former All-Pro at that position. But he was someone that the Bills kind of took a flyer on. And when we signed him, it was like, oh, cool, depth signing, nice position. But all of that, the expectation, the level that was set of expectation for him and where he's currently playing at, he has overachieved largely in that regard. And that's it for the offense right now. Josh Allen, A. Stephon Diggs, A. Gabriel Davis, overachiever. Daryl Williams, overachiever. Overall, this Buffalo Bills offense, it's very deep. It's very talented. Overall, the Buffalo Bills offense gets an A. They are top 5 in almost every metric except for rushing. But to be fair, you don't really need to run the ball when you can pass for a gajillion yards and put up 30 points doing it, especially in today's NFL where it's a passing league and a passing game. Buffalo Bills offense is very good. The identity of the Buffalo Bills is now an offensive team and a passing team at that. And that's why they have such a high grade. They're close to an A+ holistically. They're very good. And they've got a lot of talent and a lot of pieces. And again, if we went through everyone, we would be here for a very, very long time. We're going to leave the offense now. We're going to leave the offense. And we're going to go to the defense, you guys. And this is where things don't switch a little bit. But I want to pull up this comment that I noticed from Young King. Solid contributor, solid commenter here on the live broadcast. It's scary imagining our defense getting back to being to number 1 or 2 in the NFL with our current offense with a few more improvements. The offense is fantastic, as we've discussed and as this comment indicates. But that's a key point right there with, it's scary imagining what we could be if our defense gets back to, I know here you put either 1 or 2 in the NFL, but if the defense can just get back to form in some regard, they've underperformed to expectation holistically, the defense. I think it's something they will course correct, and they've shown up when it has mattered. They have somewhat of a clutch factor. They've done well. But I think we can all agree that the defense is not what we thought it would be going into this year. Just looking at some numbers, the Buffalo Bills currently are 20th in yards per game allowed with 381.3. They are 27th in passing yards allowed per game at 280.3. They are 8th in the NFL in rushing yards allowed per game with 101. They are 17th in points per game allowed with 25. They are 10th in the NFL in sacks. They are 21st in completion percentage allowed. They're allowing 67.7 completion percentage. They are 9th in takeaways with 6. That's 2 interceptions, 4 fumbles. The defense is not bad. They are not terrible. They are just underperforming. And that starts from top to bottom. Young King, again, I'm going to bring up your thoughts and your comment. What's your thoughts on Trey White? Trey White is a microcosm of the Bills defense right now, you guys. And that microcosm is someone who's been, made some mistakes, but also made a really good play, but then also not looked good, but then shown up and done a good job. I don't think Trey is playing at the level he was last year, which, he played at an all-pro level and was one of the top 2 or 3, if not the best corner in the NFL last year. So playing at that level again is something that's a high bar that he set. But I don't think he's playing as good as he's capable of. I definitely don't think he's playing as good as he did last year. And I think he would admit that as well based on what he's done. He's been beaten on a variety of routes, deep, short, over the middle. He's gotten boxed out a couple times. The box out against Gesicki was one that really stuck out in my mind against Miami. Even granted it was a low throw and a good catch by Waller, but even the one to Waller that was originally ruled incomplete, but then the Raiders challenged and was overturned and turned to a completion. Something like that, I see and I think would Trey have made that play last year? And maybe it's just a good throw, and maybe it's just a good catch, but he seemed to just be this year a half step too late, or his technique is just a little off when it comes to his timing. I don't think he's playing as good as he can, but I think he'll turn it around, much like the defense as a whole. The defense as a whole, I've given a C+ for the first quarter of the season. They haven't been atrocious. They haven't been terrible. And they made plays when they've needed to and when it's counted. But they're just not playing where they need to be. And I think, again, where we expected them to be. We're only through the first quarter. As we go through, I believe they will course correct. Leslie Frazier, Sean McDermott, they're good coaches. That whole coaching staff, we list through everybody. They're smart. They're well educated. They know the scheme. They know what they can do. I think think they're going to turn it around. And I trust in the process to do so. But just because the defense holistically hasn't been up to par or up to an ideal level of play doesn't mean there haven't been successes in that defense. And one success that I wanted to bring out right now is Mario Addison. I've given Mario Addison a B+. I was excited for his addition in the offseason. I'm still excited about his addition now. He currently leads the team in sacks with 2. He leads the team in pressures with 10. And he only has the 3rd most snaps on the defense. He is the 3rd highest graded Buffalo Bills defender. And he has the 2nd best grade on pass rush snaps. He's flashing well on tape. He's making plays. He's getting pressures. He's getting in the backfield. He's been solid. He's been as advertised. When we signed Mario Addison, I honestly believed he was going to be close to, if not our best pass rusher, him and Jerry Hughes. But Addison has been really well. Jerry Hughes has also done very well. But Mario Addison, I don't think there's enough talk about what he's done so far. He's close up there in terms of getting the highest grade on the Buffalo Bills defense. I've given him a B+ here. He's someone that I think really stabilizes the defensive line, and especially with AJ Epinesa, and we're trying to see how he comes along and how he progresses. Having that solid defensive line play and especially defensive end play from a guy like Addison, who's in on a good deal and who has the experience and production in previous seasons, having someone like that stabilize the defensive end position is something that's of really good value. And he's played really well. I think he's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle a little bit. A lot of the talk on the Bills defense and about the Bills defense has been largely negative. There's been several underperformers that are being raked over the coals week after week. And when you get into that negative space, I think you kind of lose sight of who's done good and who's done well. And Mario Addison is someone that has done really well for the Buffalo Bills, and I've given him a B+. Also within that, if I had to give my highest grade to a Bills defender, it would be Jordan Poyer. He is the highest graded Bills defender in most metrics. He has flashed well on tape, much like Mario Addison, but he's made more impact plays, forcing fumbles, tackles behind the line of scrimmage, being pretty good in coverage. He's gotten beat a couple times, but he's done really well. He makes big plays. He makes splash plays, things that affect toxic differential. He makes those plays while also maintaining his assignment discipline, his zone integrity, his defensive responsibility. He leads all Bills defenders in total snaps. He's tied with Micah Hyde for most tackles on the team, which also says kind of a little bit about where the Bills have gotten gouged and taken advantage of on defense, which has been in the intermediate part of the field. When your 2 safeties, I don't care how good they are, when your 2 safeties are your leading tacklers, it means running backs are breaking through your first and second line of defense, and guys are making catches in the intermediate to deeper parts of the field, and the safeties are having to make plays. But when he's been called upon, Poyer's been fantastic, especially in intermediate coverage where he really thrives. He functions best around the line of scrimmage, but he can drop deep. He can pretty much function in both capacities at the safety position: free, strong, deep, intermediate, blitz, come off the edge, function in run support, function against the screen. He's done really well. He is my highest graded Buffalo Bills defender for the first quarter of the season. I've given him an A-. I think Jordan Poyer has done really, really well. I really, really like him a lot. Continuing on the defense. Now we're going to go to an underachiever, a big underachiever. But when you look at it, it's not really too terrible. Tremaine Edmonds is my underachiever, my big underachiever for the first quarter of the season. But I don't want to spell doom for him, as Eric Turner of Cover One broke down in one of his most recent videos, which you can find on Cover One. He broke down a lot of what's happened to Tremaine Edmonds. Yikes. Tremaine Edmonds. Tremaine Edmonds is his other twin brother who might make it to the NFL. Tremaine Edmonds has this year not played up to the level that we had hoped. But it hasn't been all completely on him, like he's just making bad reads and bad mistakes. He's being put in situations that are really stressful for a middle linebacker. He's getting put in situations against the Raiders offense and the Rams offense both of which are very good offenses, both of which scheme very well, both of which make life very hard on a middle linebacker. Eric's video really did a tremendous job breaking it down and puts things in perspective when it comes to Tremaine Edmonds, because has he been what we had envisioned and hoped so far? No, not in the first quarter of the year. But he's not terrible. He's not completely flailing around and just someone that you're like, oh God, he's in the game, but it's a weakness. Also, he's been banged up. Also, he's only 22. He's still just a baby. I know he's built like a very, very large man, and he has predator dreads, which are awesome and terrifying and intimidating, but he's still just a pup. He's still just a baby. Nonetheless, he hasn't played up to expectations, but it's not as bad as it seems. And I think a lot with Tremaine Edmonds when it comes to the expectations, right? I think we see his frame and his raw ability and talent and size and age. And then you think of other famous young middle linebackers. You think of Sean McDermott's success with linebackers, especially Luke Kuechly. You see all of that and you think, oh my God, Tremaine Edmonds is going to be that next guy. I saw comments during the offseason, and it's fair, about the type of deal and contract that Tremaine Edmonds was going to get when his rookie deal is up and how we'll probably reset the market for linebackers. And there's all this expectation and anticipation for the level of play that Tremaine Edmonds has. And when you set the bar that high, it's tough to reach that bar sometimes. And I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit on Tremaine Edmonds. Not in a terrible way, because he's not terrible. He's young. He's still developing. He's been banged up. And he's still done some good things. As Joe Nelson put, famous commenter here on Disguise Coverage, he has done well in the run game, just can't quite get home in pass rush. And that's a good point. Eric, again, in his video on Cover One, love Eric's tape grinding. It's fantastic. He really breaks down how Edmonds is close in making the right read, but he's just a half second too late, or he bites just a little too much coming up and then gets caught behind, or he makes this read and his eyes kind of mislead him, and then as he comes back around, he's just slightly late. He's a hair off. He's just not there with everything. And again, you juxtapose his level of play in the first quarter of the season with the expectations you had going in, and that's why he's an underachiever. But I don't think all hope is lost. I don't think we're going to sit here and say, oh my God, like Tremaine Edmonds is a weakness. This was a bad pick. This was bad. I don't think he's the best Buffalo Bills linebacker. I think Matt Milano is the best Buffalo Bills linebacker. I thought that coming into this year, and I think that now. Tremaine Edmonds is ceiling higher than Milano. He can be phenomenal. Not that Milano isn't. But Milano's a very good linebacker. He does a lot of things well, especially in pass coverage. He's been one of the highest rated pass coverage linebackers in the last several years. One of the best linebackers when it comes to completion percentage allowed against opposing quarterbacks. I think Milano's our best linebacker. And again, I don't think that's doing a disservice to Tremaine because he's still just a pup. He's 22. He's young. He's got a lot of football left. And if he progresses and hits that ceiling like we think he can, he might cash in on 2 monster deals. He might cash in on, he could get a market-setting contract and then get another market-setting contract again right after that. As Greg here has put, Greg, Cover One member, awesome content, awesome person. Follow him on Twitter. Follow him everywhere. Follow him from his house to his job, all that kind of stuff. No, don't do that, but maybe. Greg says, I'm certainly guilty of setting the bar too high on Edmonds coming into this year. And I think that's spot on. I think that's something that happens. Again, especially when you get hyped on everything that the Bills have. You get hyped on what you saw last year from the defense. You get hyped on what they could be going into this year. And you start to set the bar high. And when you set it too high, it's tough to kind of ever reach that bar again. I think that's the situation we have with Tremaine. Has he played well? No. Is he a dumpster fire like it's potentially being made out that he is? No. He's not a dumpster fire. And I think he'll get coached up. I'm also hoping he gets a bit healthier and can really turn things around. He's, again, a guy who's still very young. He is still developing. He's still developing not only in his mental capacity for the game, but into his physical frame. He's still putting on muscle and filling out and funneling into the man physically that he's going to be. He's got a lot of football left. He's got a lot of development left. There's so much when it comes to Tremaine Edmonds. And I know he hasn't played well, but I think we're going to see better days for him, especially as he gets healthier. And as we've discussed, he's not far off. He's not making all the plays we want. He is making some good ones. We'll see him shoot the gap and make a tackle in the backfield, make a good play, string something out and make a tackle. And then we'll also see him get hooked, get blown out of a gap, make the wrong read and leave a hole open. That happened multiple times against the Raiders. He left holes open that Jacobs and Jalen Richard both took advantage of and had big runs for the Raiders. But that's going to happen when you're young, and that's going to happen when you're playing a role in a Sean McDermott defense like that. And I want to briefly touch on the cornerback position. The cornerback position is something, before I was a member here on Cover One, and even as a member of Cover One, I have been banging the drum for being worried for our cornerback depth all offseason. I loved what the Buffalo Bills did in the NFL draft. I thought it was really good. But I wanted a corner with our first pick. I was very happy with AJ Epinesa, though. He fell. I thought that was tremendous value. Grab him. Got it. Love it. But I wanted a corner. Coming into camp, I thought our overall depth was okay. I thought Tre'Davious White and Josh Norman and Levi Wallace and EJ Gaines, I thought holistically that depth was okay. Not the best, but okay. You got an all-pro on one side, and then you got three guys who, if one of them's terrible or gets hurt, you can kind of plug anyone in. EJ Gaines is really good, but he can never stay healthy for more than 8 to 10 games. So it's good to have that rotation. EJ Gaines opts out. Norman gets hurt. Now Levi has been hurt, and it looks like he's going to miss some significant time. I like how Josh Norman played last week. He's aggressive. He tackles well. He plays physical. He creates turnovers, contributes to that toxic differential. But Josh Norman is also another guy that we need to pump the brakes. Pump the brakes on the Tremaine Edmonds hate, but also pump the brakes on the Josh Norman praise. He had a good game last week, good enough, but sitting and thinking we're set at corner 2, that everything's okay, I don't feel super confident with that. And with a guy like Josh Norman, I am very worried when it comes to the game against the Chiefs, or depending on the health of the Titans, whenever the heck that game gets played, if the Titans again decide to not be awful. I'm worried about how Josh Norman does against faster, more athletic wide receivers. He was never the most fleet of foot, the most athletic, the fastest, but he was physical, played with a technique. He's a bit older. I'm worried to see how he functions against NFL teams and offenses that have speed and that have ability, combined with some technique. I think we need to pump the brakes on that a little bit. I would say for game 1, again, small sample size, very small sample size, I would say Josh Norman overachieved in game 1 against the Raiders. When Levi went down, I was like, oof, here we go, time to shine. But he created a turnover. He made good tackles in the run game. My favorite play for him, maybe third quarter, the Raiders ran a sweep to the right, and Norman flew up. He met the pulling guard, submarined him, turned the run back inside. The rest of the defense cleaned it up, and Raiders had like a 2-yard loss. But he came up with no fear and just stuck the lineman hard, shut the edge, shut the corner, made the running back turn back inside, muddled up the whole play. That's what you're really going to see as a strength from Josh Norman. He's much more physical than Levi. He brings that aggressiveness. He brings that toughness, and much is what we're seeing from multiple comments. Joe Nelson, again, multiple. He came in at a good price. Perfect for the number 2 corner role. I don't know if I'd say perfect. I'm still a little worried. I'd feel better if we had Levi healthy or somewhat of a rotation. But I like the attitude that he brings, and I like the tenacity and toughness. Again, the reason I'm concerned with corner as a whole, when you've got an all-pro like Tre'Davious White, even if he's struggling, right, that number 2 corner is going to get tested. If you have a true number 1, teams don't go after that number 1 a lot. They go after that number 2. And if your number 2 isn't solid, you're going to get eaten time and time again. We saw that with Levi a couple times this year, as we did last year. Teams would be like, okay, well, we can just get this other guy. Let's just keep going at this other guy. And it's an easy way to get beat, especially in today's NFL. Eric, from Cover One, shout out to Eric, shout out to Cover One. Norman and Milano put their bodies on the line. on that play. Exactly. I believe, Eric, you are talking about the play where Norman stuffed that run to the outside. And yeah, Milano, Norman, Taron Johnson, the Bills have a lot of physical presence on the defensive side of the ball. They play fast, they play reckless, not in a bad way, but they play hard and they play with effort. And that's why I think, despite the struggles we've seen in the first quarter of the season, I think they're going to get better because the want to is there, the talent is there, the schemability and the coaching is there. We've also seen not a regular offseason, and we're still seeing guys gel and fit and find themselves and find their form. And as we start to get that, I think the cream rises to the top, much like Macho Man Randy Savage said in one of the best wrestling promos of all time. The cream rises to the top, and I think the Bills defense has a lot of cream, and I think they're going to do good. Another comment here on Josh Allen. He is perfect as the corner number 2 because as an off corner, he's opportunistic and can tackle. That's a very good point. I think the fit of Josh Norman in the Bills defense, in particular a Sean McDermott defense, it fits him almost to a T. It's the defense he was an all-pro in. He can sit back. He doesn't have to be in man coverage like he was a decent amount in Washington where he got beat. But he's opportunistic. He takes risks. He can make a play. And 1,000% he can tackle. That aggressiveness coming up and making plays. Good one from Joe Nelson. Norman has the big-time mindset that makes him perfect for corner number 2. That's a fair assessment. I think his mindset, his mentality is a good fit for the number 2 corner spot. I'm worried about the physical ability at times, but I think his mindset and where his head is at and how he plays the game and how he understands the defense makes him a very good fit, at least in the Bills defense. Much to your point and much to Eric's point from cover 1, I agree with that as well. I also want to throw this up again from Young King. Like this, we know what MF stands for, video up. I appreciate that. That's nice. Bang that like button, break it, smash it, like over. It's what, it's a nice little ego boost, and that's what we're really here for. But Josh Norman's done good. I also want to scroll back to a comment earlier. Oh, I'm going. There was multiple here from Daniel. First, thoughts on Harrison Phillips. I think he's still recovering from his injury from last year. An injury like that takes you. I know you can come back earlier than 1 year, but it really takes you about 12 to 14 months until you're feeling like yourself again. And as I mentioned on last week's episode, especially when you're a big guy, more stress on ligaments, more strain and pressure on your ligaments. I think he's still getting his feet and his body and his rhythm back under him. He's somebody who, I know you have the risk of getting injury in preseason, but he's somebody I would have liked to have seen get preseason reps just to get his feet back under him, no pun intended, and get his rhythm and get back into that football playing mindset and shape. He's flashed a couple times in a positive way. I don't think he's been tremendously solid, but I also I don't want to say that I don't expect much from him, but I don't expect him to make big, flashy, awesome plays. I'm not looking at him to make Ed Oliver splash type plays. I want to see him be solid, maintain his gap integrity, which he's struggled with at times, but I still think he's finding the rhythm in adjusting and recovering from that injury. Also, same commenter. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thoughts on Quinton Spain. I thought it was really interesting when Quinton Spain kind of stepped out of the starting lineup when we saw Winters move into right guard and Cody Ford move into the left. I thought Spain last year was really solid. I thought he was fine enough in the first several games this year. I thought it was interesting seeing him flash into the right guard spot in the first quarter of the season, and he held his own. My bigger thing with it is, what does his play and Cody Ford at left guard mean when Feliciano comes back? Somebody who is a locker room favorite, has been a road grader in the run game and a pretty good pass blocker. But what does that offensive line look like? I think Quinton Spain is capable enough to start, and I think as a depth piece is absolutely phenomenal. The depth on the offensive line, I love, especially when Feliciano comes back. If we're sitting there and then Spain is the first guard off the bench, we're in a good spot. Much like we're sitting there with Dawkins and Daryl Williams, and then Tynasecki is kind of the swing tackle that is first to come up off the bench. The offensive line depth that the Bills have is solid. I think Spain is capable of starting. And if he's in there, I'm not tremendously worried. But having him potentially is what it looks like of being the first offensive guard off the bench in times of need, I think is something that's really awesome. That's a tremendous depth piece. And those are some Buffalo Bills team grades for the first quarter of the season. Offense gets an A, several standouts on the offense, some defenders, not as high of grades as the offense. Holistically, overall, the defense about a C+, while the offense is sitting at an A. And as we mentioned earlier in the episode, and as some of the comments indicated, if the Bills defense can raise just a little bit more, I think it's going to be harder also for them to be a top 5 unit again, statistically speaking, because if you're putting up points on the offensive side, it's tough to maintain that level of defensive play if you've got teams always passing on you and always going after you and always going after you and always going after you. It's tough, especially in today's NFL. Like we've said, it's an offensive league. It's a passing league. But I think the Bills defense will course correct. I think they will get better. I think we'll see better play from Tremaine Edmonds as he gets more healthy, as he continues to adjust in this year. I really want to see what the injuries look like on defense. I know we've got some stuff going on with Trey right now, Matt Milano, how long Levi's out for. Hopefully Norman can hold the fort down, because if Norman goes out, that corner depth, as I mentioned, I'm extremely worried about that. I'm going to be terrified based on what comes up next. I think the Bills have got some depth, but after Norman, I don't feel tremendously confident. We're going to see what happens with the Bills defense. It's going to be a fun second quarter, third quarter, final 4 games of the year for the Buffalo Bills, because we get to see, does the defense turn things around, and can the offense continue to play at this mesmerizing rate that they have? They're one of the best offenses in the NFL, and you've got a quarterback who's in his 3rd year who a lot of people doubted and said would never be anything, and he's definitely in the MVP race, definitely got a lot going for him. We're going to be able to see if the Bills offense can continue on the path that they're on, and if the Bills defense can turn things around and match it a little bit. As mentioned, a good comment earlier in this episode was, if that Bills defense can turn things around just a little bit, uptick things a little bit, course correct just a little bit, we have a scary, complete team. And we didn't even talk about special teams, where Roberts is one of the best returners in the league, and he's changed field position so many times already this year in the first quarter of the season. It's exciting. Good comment here at the end. Nice question. Right now, are we drafting a corner in round 1 of next year's draft? I want to see what happens in the offseason when it comes to contracts and money first. I want to see, do we re-sign Daryl Williams? Do we possibly re-sign Matt Milano? At what year and what value for both of those dudes? What does that money look like for both of those guys? That's going to be a big indicator for me. Right now, if we took a corner in round 1 of next year's draft, I'm cool with it. I'm very cool with it. I would like to see that position solidified. I think Levi is a nice piece. I like him more as a depth piece than the firm, everyday number 2 corner. But I think a lot's going to depend on what we do in the offseason. If we don't bring Milano back, linebacker might be up there for me in some regard. Again, I like Tremaine Edmonds and I like Milano, but even with just them two, both of them, they play at a high level. Linebacking depth as a whole has not been great. We've seen AJ Klein this year. He has not looked like the AJ Klein that played New Orleans the last several years. Dodson's been nice, but I don't feel wholly confident in him. If Milano doesn't come back, linebacker might be a position that I would like to see, especially with the Bills' propensity to play nickel. I know you're going to have more corners on the field than nickel, but you really need 2 rangy linebackers that can function in the run game, can blitz, and that can also cover sideline to sideline and deep and wear multiple hats. That linebacker position is really key for the Buffalo Bills. And if Milano doesn't come back, I might want to see a linebacker. And if Daryl Williams doesn't come back, might see a right tackle. But that's all for next season. This season's been fun. The Bills are 4-0. It's a good time. We'll see what happens with Tennessee, what that game gets decided for in terms of scheduling, what happens with Kansas City, what happens with the next quarter of the season. Quarter 2 of the year, the next 4 games are going to be challenging if they all get jumbled and mushed into a short amount of time. If they get put into a short span, it's going to be something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. But the first quarter has been good. The Bills' offense is rolling. The defense, not so much, but there is hope. There is light on the horizon. It's not as bad as we think. It's not great, but it's not terrible. The Bills' offense is awesome. We've got some studs on offense. We've still got solid play on defense. I believe things will come together. And that's going to be it for this week's episode of Disguised Coverage. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to this week's episode, for riding with me again on this week's episode of Disguised Coverage. On whatever platform you're viewing, listening, whatever, I appreciate anyone and everyone's support. Thank you for all the engagement and comments during the episode. Thank you for your support. Please tell all your family and friends and loved ones, cats, dogs, fish, imaginary friends about this pod, about Cover One. Follow me on the Twitter at pro__ant, pro__ant. I appreciate everybody. Go Bills. I'll see you next week.